I want to start today with a piece of advice that almost every actor has heard at some point. It sounds like this: just be patient. Your time will come. You just have to trust the process. Keep working, keep showing up. Eventually, it will happen for you. And I want to say something about that advice that might be uncomfortable to hear. That advice, as well intentioned as it is, has done so much damage to acting careers. And the reason is that because what sounds like patience in that advice, in practice, in the life of a real actor, it looks like this. I've been training for 7 years and I still don't have representation, but I just need to be patient. Or I've been submitting with the same materials and the same profile for 2 years and nothing is converting for me, but I just need to be patient. Or, I turned 36 last month and I'm no further along than I was at 28, but I just need to be patient. And every year that goes by, that patience gets harder to hold. And that little whisper at the back of your mind just keeps getting louder and louder. What if being patient is just another way of saying that I'm afraid to look at what's actually going on? So today we're going to take apart the patience myth, not because patience is wrong as a human quality. I will admit I am not the most patient person in the world, but I believe in patience. I think it is a good thing for us to have in general. I believe in trusting the process. I do. But there is a version of patience that is actually just passivity. And that is costing years that actors cannot get back. This is episode 13 of Powerhouse Conversations: Why Patience is the Most Dangerous Advice Actors Get. So let's get into it. So I want to be really careful and really clear today. I'm probably going to get some comments on this video being like, what, you're saying that I shouldn't be patient, that I'm running out of time, but I'm not saying any of that. And I know this can land wrong if I'm not being really precise about what I'm saying. I am not here to tell you to give up hope. I am not here to tell you that you're running out of time. I don't believe that any of us are running out of time. I'm not here to create panic or create pressure or be like, you should be further along than you are. That is not what I'm saying. What I am here to do is to draw a line between two things that look the same from the outside and are completely different on the inside. One of them is strategic patience. Knowing that a career takes time to build. It does. Making deliberate moves. Trusting that the cumulative effect of those moves are going to compound over months, over years. That kind of patience is real. I believe in that patience completely. The other one is passive patience. That looks like waiting for something to change without doing anything different. It looks like telling yourself that the next audition or the next year or the next headshot session will be the thing that finally shifts it. This is using patience as a reason to avoid the harder questions about whether what you're doing is actually working. Strategic patience builds careers. Passive patience burns years of your life. And today is about learning to tell the difference between those two. Clip that. So I want to start by being fair to this advice that, is not coming from nowhere. There are real reasons why people say, just be patient, right? Careers in acting genuinely take time. They take time. Those overnight success stories that we hear are almost always preceded by years and years of work that no one was aware of, work that was unseen. You look that person up on IMDb and they have all these tiny credits that you have no idea. Sometimes the thing that finally clicks for someone is just the accumulation of years of showing up. So when someone tells you to be patient, they are partially right. This is not a fast industry at all. And this advice also comes from a place of protection, because if you internalize every rejection as a failure and you treat every month that's kind of quiet as proof that what you're doing is not working, that's not true either. and you're going to burn out emotionally before your career has a chance to build, or you're going to be changing stuff up unnecessarily, which doesn't make sense either. So patience as an emotional skill of an actor is actually really necessary. You will not survive in this industry without the ability to hold space for uncertainty and to hold space for things to take time. So where does it go wrong? It goes wrong when patience becomes a substitute for getting in there and doing some diagnosis. When someone says, just be patient, but what they actually mean is, I don't really know what to tell you, so keep doing what you're doing and hope something changes. That's not strategy. Clip that. That advice goes wrong when patience becomes the reason that you don't look at your data. When you've been submitting the same materials for a few years with no results, and instead of pulling your submission report and auditing your casting profiles and asking hard questions about your positioning, you tell yourself, well, it just takes time. It goes wrong when patience protects you from having to make a change, making a change to your representation, making a change to what you're doing. Making a change admits that the current approach isn't working, and admitting that after years of effort is kind of painful sometimes. I get that. So the advice to be patient isn't wrong, but it's incomplete. And incomplete advice that sounds wise is actually more dangerous than bad advice that actually sounds bad, right? Because you question that, but the wise sounding advice you just follow without questioning it. And that's where the years just kind of slip by. So I want to walk you through 4 specific ways that patience, when it's applied the wrong way, actually costs you time and opportunity and career momentum. And I want you to just see which ones feel familiar to you. So the first pattern is patience with a strategy that isn't working. This is probably the most common one I see. An actor has a routine. They take class. They have an agent who's submitting them. They update their headshots every couple years. They wait for their agents to get them auditions. And this routine has not been producing results for a long time, maybe years. But the actor is patient. They tell themselves, well, the routine is right, and the results just haven't caught up yet. Or, if I keep doing the same things long enough, the outcome is eventually going to change. Something's going to shift. You know that cliche, the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And I want to be really gentle here because I understand why some actors fall into this. When you have invested years in an approach, admitting it's not working feels like admitting that those years were wasted. And that is kind of brutal to sit with. So it's just easier to be patient than to face it. But that I want to just shift your thinking around that. I don't think that those are wasted years. I think that you have to try something to see if it's working. And what I see happen across actors at different levels, the ones who actually break through and start to build momentum are not the ones who waited longer with the same strategy. They're the ones who at some point had the courage to look at what was actually happening and change course. Sometimes it was a radical change of course, but they were willing to do that, to ask the hard questions, to take a hard look at what was actually going on. Patience without a strategy is not patience, it's avoidance. Clip that. So how long have you been doing roughly the same things for your career? And in that time, have the results meaningfully changed? And if the answer is, it's been a while with no meaningful shift, then it might be time to question the strategy. That's all. So pattern number 2 is patience with representation that isn't particularly working. An actor signs with an agent or a manager. There's so much excitement at the beginning. They're communicative, things are going well. And then the auditions slow, and then they stop. And months go by, and the actor reaches out, they get some sort of vague reassurance, or they get some like email message sent to everybody about how slow the industry is or whatever. They settle back into waiting. The story they tell themselves is, well, they believe in me. I know they submit me when the right thing comes along. I just need to be patient. Here's what I want to say about this, as carefully as I can. Agents are human beings. They have businesses to run. They have rosters. They have clients who are actively producing revenue for them. And if you are not one of those clients, and you are not actively communicating with your rep about your goals and your trajectory, you can quietly just slide into the bottom of the roster without anyone really making a conscious decision for this to happen. It just kind of happens through inertia. So being patient with a rep out of some sense of loyalty or whatever, that is a misunderstanding of how the relationship works. This is a partnership. You have a role in it, and your role is not to sit quietly and wait. I teach a whole framework for this inside my community, the Table, and the actors who actually implement it, who communicate proactively, who bring their reps into their strategic plans, who build the relationship beyond just waiting for auditions, who are making it clear to their rep how much work they are doing on their side. They get more out of their representation. They just do. Not because they got lucky and have a better agent, but because they took ownership of the partnership. So if you have a rep right now, when was the last real strategic conversation you had with them? Right? About where your career is going this quarter, what kinds of roles you want to be seen for, what you can do on your end to make their job easier. If you've never had that conversation, or it's been more than a year, that's not patience, that's a gap in the partnership. I just want to check in and see if there are any questions. Hi. Hey, y'all. Good to see you. Okay, so pattern number 3 is patience with your own development when something specific probably needs to change. This one's a little more subtle, I think. And it's the one that I think talented actors kind of fall into most easily. This is the one who knows on some level that something about their positioning or their approach or their materials need to change. Maybe they can sense that their reel is outdated or it's not really showing them at the level that they are now. Maybe they've been told by multiple people that their headshots don't really match their energy or don't really tell a specific story, or they've kind of had this nagging feeling that something's not right. But they're patient. They'll get to it. They'll deal with it next quarter. They'll fix it when they have the budget to do that. They'll address it when things slow down. And in the meantime, every submission that goes out, either that they're doing themselves or that their representation is doing, the materials aren't representing them accurately. So if you're, in this bucket, this is time that you're being submitted with photos that don't represent you correctly, and that's passive patience, and that costs years. It can feel like it's not costing anything because nothing dramatic happens, but invisibly, every month that passes with the wrong positioning is a month where the right people can't find you, or when they do call you in, they're getting something different than they thought they did. So you're not booking those roles. So is there something that needs to change, something that you've been putting off? How long have you been putting it off? And how can you shorten the time before you deal with that? Pattern number 4 is a tricky one. This one is patience as a way of avoiding the emotional work. This one's the deepest, and I want to be really careful here. For some of us, patience is not about strategy at all. It's about our emotions. Specifically, it's about avoiding dealing with the grief of admitting that the current version of our plan isn't working, that what we're doing now is not working. Because if you're patient, you don't have to really confront that. You don't have to grieve. You can keep hope alive. You can not examine anything. You can keep telling yourself that, yes, I'm on the right track. It's just a matter of time. And as long as you're in that story, you don't have to sit with the harder questions. Questions like, is the way I've been pursuing this actually aligned with where I want to go? Questions like, have I been avoiding looking at my career honestly because what I might see scares me? Questions like, am I holding on to an old version of my plan because the new version requires me to change something about how I see myself? You know, a lot of us who have been in the industry for a long time have built this identity around someone who perseveres, around I'm someone who doesn't give up. I'm someone who's patient. And that identity is admirable for sure. But sometimes it also prevents them from doing that one thing that would actually move them forward. Stopping, looking honestly at where things stand, and making a new plan that's based on reality instead of based on hope. And, setbacks are such a normal part of this. And I teach a whole framework for how to recover from setbacks and use them constructively. But you can only use a setback constructively if you're willing to see it clearly. And patience, in that passive form of patience that we've been talking about, is often a way of just like blurring that picture so you don't have to see it. So the question for you is there a version of your career plan that you've been holding on to because letting go of it would hurt too much? And is that version still aligned with reality, or has that reality moved and you haven't moved with it? So if you recognized yourself in one of those or in more than one of those, I want to say something important. Recognizing it is not the same as having wasted time. The time you've spent got you here. It built your craft. It gave you experience. It gave you resilience. Like, do not beat yourself up for feeling like time has passed. None of that is wasted. But recognizing the pattern is the first step to changing it. And changing it is where real career momentum starts. So I don't want to leave you just with the problem. Like, here's the problem. Have fun. Good luck. I want to show you what the alternative looks like. Because strategic patience is a real thing and it's worth understanding. So strategic patience looks like this. You have a plan. The plan is specific. It's built around clear goals. You know what you're working on this quarter. You know who you're trying to build relationships with. You know what materials need to be updated, and you have a plan for when. You're reviewing your progress regularly, at least quarterly. You're adjusting when something isn't working. And then within that structure, you're patient. You understand that relationships take time to build. You understand that positioning changes can take a little while to be like seen by the industry. You understand that you might do everything right this quarter and not see the results until a little bit down the line. Like, that is patience. That's real patience, because it's patience with a clear plan underneath it. The difference between strategic patience and passive patience is one word: evidence. Strategic patience is evidence-based. You can point to what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what the early signals are telling you. You're reading the data, you're adjusting, you're in conversation with your reps about where things stand. You have a quarterly rhythm where you take stock and recalibrate. Passive patience has no evidence. It's just waiting. And you can't point to specific things that you've changed in the last 3 months based on what the data was showing you. Clip that. So I want to share a practical framework for this because I think it's useful. Every quarter, I want you to ask yourself 3 questions. 1, what did I actually do this quarter? Not what did I intend to do, but what did I actually complete? 2, What evidence do I have that my positioning is improving? Am I getting called in more? Am I getting called in for different things? Has a new relationship formed? Has an old relationship deepened? Have I reconnected? Did my submission ratio shift? Something measurable. And 3, based on what I learned this quarter, what am I going to do differently next quarter? Because if the answer to that third question is nothing, I'm just going to keep going, that's a signal that that's probably passive patience talking. Clip that. Actors who build long, sustainable careers are not the ones who were the most patient. They're the ones who were the most honest with themselves about what was working and what wasn't, and who had the discipline to adjust when the data told them to adjust. That's a completely different skill than just waiting. And it's learnable. So for the actors in this conversation who are recognizing that the patience that they're practicing might be costing you some time, costing you more than it's giving you, and you're ready for a real structure to replace it, I want to describe the ways we can work together. So the Table is my year-long coaching community where I teach all these frameworks. We come together every quarter for quarterly planning retreats, and that is where we take a look at this and see what's up. So if you're ready to stop guessing and start building with a real plan, we do this quarterly planning, we do monthly marketing plans, we set specific measurable goals, and we review them honestly each month. And then you have the coaching, you have the accountability, you have a community of actors who are doing the same work alongside you. So if the patience that you've been practicing hasn't been producing results, this is where we replace it with something that actually works. And then there's Agent Alchemy. Agent Alchemy is my 44-day program for actors who have been patiently waiting for the right rep and are ready to go and find one deliberately. It is a structured human system for building the kinds of relationships that lead to aligned representation. So if the rep situation is where you've been patient for too long, this is the exit from that particular kind of waiting. Both are linked in the YouTube description, so you can take a look when you're ready. All right, so I'm going to open it up to questions on this live stream. If you're here, let me know if you have any questions. And if you're watching the replay of this on any of our platforms, of course, if you comment, I will answer your questions. Here's what I want to leave you with today. Patience is not a strategy. It is a quality that supports strategy. And without the strategy underneath it, patience is just the slow erosion of time that you cannot get back. Every quarter that goes by without a clear plan, without honest assessment of what's working, without the willingness to change course when the evidence says it's time to change course, that's 3 months that you're not going to get back, right? Not because you're aging out. I do not believe in that. Not because there's some invisible deadline. That's not what I'm saying. But because every month you spend with the wrong positioning, the wrong materials, the wrong approach is a month where the right people couldn't find you, even if they wanted to. That's the real cost. Not time passing. Time passing is fine. Time passing without clarity is what hurts. So this week, I want you to do one thing. I want you to just sit down and ask yourself honestly, is the patience that I've been practicing strategic or passive? Am I waiting because I have a plan and I'm trusting it? Or am I waiting because I'm avoiding the harder work of figuring out what my plan actually is? And the answer to that question will tell you so much about what your next step should be. Your career is not on a timer at all, but this is either working or it isn't. And waiting will never fix your positioning. Only clarity is going to do that. And clarity is available to you right now.